Just pledge, you?
Yeah, sure.
Stand for pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a quorum of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 board members, and Commissioner Roy is not here yet. We're not sure of his status, and Commissioner Larry should be here shortly. We'll take a motion to accept and approve the reading of the minutes with the waiver.
So moved?
Move to,
Second that.
moved and seconded to accept and approve the minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Review and approval of all bills, part-time deputies payroll.
Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve the warrants as presented.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded to approve the warrant as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimous, 6 with 1 absence. Any reports? CA?
Mr. Post, did you get a chance to call into the?
I did not.
Okay, I did. You did?
Did.
What happened?
Well, the only reason why I was calling in was for on Oxford County's behalf, for the jail funding. I was acting as their business manager, but if nobody else was there, for my Andrew Scoggin, I said and told him ran up to say it.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah, so basically, they approved a new, or they got in a bunch of bids for lobbying services, and the committee's recommendation was to go with Veryl Dana, which was like $60,000 a year, something like that. That was okay. People were like, okay, that's fine. And then the only other thing, the reason why I was there was because of the jail funding. So there's a supplemental funding from our normal funding formula, right? So we have a basic funding formula, then a community corrections funding formula, and then in addition to that, there's supplemental funding. So Carrie Kipford, the administrator from Lincoln County, had sent out an email to everybody, all the administrators, asking for what was each jail's shortfall for FY20 ending June 30th, or if you're a calendar year end, FY19, meaning December 31st, 19. She had done that back in June. Oxford, the administrator at Oxford County had asked me for those numbers. I sent him the numbers, he sent them to her, but apparently they didn't make it into the spreadsheet and into the calculation, so the shortfall for Oxford County was listed as 0, and really they had a $437,000 shortfall. And the formula is that you first fund the shortfalls, or at least the way they were calculating it was, first fund the shortfalls with this additional money, and then any money remaining from this pot then gets allocated appropriately. So Oxford County basically asked, hey, can we fix this calculation before we submit it to the state for payment? And everybody seemed to be okay. It seems okay. But one of the county commissioners said, well, I'd like it to go to the administrators first, just to make sure that there's no problems with it. So I went out to the administrators, and then there's some problem with that, because then what it means is, including Andrew Scoggin, what it means is based off of the original formula where the $0 was listed for Oxford County as opposed to 437. It means that remaining amount to be allocated obviously is reduced. And so all counties had a reduction from their original calculation. And so a number of administrators did not like that because they had seen the original calculation and said, no, that doesn't, we don't want to do that. So now it's up in the air what what the supplemental funding is gonna be. So, basically, all the administrators were told to go back and, the MCCA will figure it out going forward. But, Oxford County's position is still to, submit the $437,000 shortfall, because that's what it was. And then my position anyway, or my suggestion to Noel is for Androscoggin to support that, because it does no good, even though it means Androscoggin County would get less than what we had originally thought based off of the erroneous calculation. It does no good to not fund the county, all of the counties, based off of what their shortfalls are, which is what the calculation is. And that was that concept was actually supported by the MCCA president and also a number of the county commissioners and administrators. So that's gonna go back to the MCCA for calculation, because it has to go to Scott Ferguson at the state at some point for him to be able to say, okay, this is how much we're divvying it up. And then there was another question of whether or not there was actually the $2.8 million available. There may not even be $2.8 million, which is what they thought it was gonna be. So it's all closed up. And basically it means none of the counties are getting any of that one-time additional funding based off of this additional amount until that calculation gets calculated. In the longer term perspective, all it does is highlight the fact that this concept of, well, first counties have to have a tax on how much a cap on how much they can raise, which Oxford County raises the most that they can raise under the statute, right? So they're limited on what they can raise, and as we were talking about for our budget, right, we're only doing, what, 2% this year? The max is 4%. So Oxford County now has its hands tied on how much it can raise to provide jail funding, so, which means it's then reliant on the state to provide it with supplemental funding or with funding, and then, the jail administrator there's problem is, how can I budget anything? I don't know what I'm gonna be getting for revenue in, because I'm maxing out what I can raise in taxes, but I don't know what I'm gonna be getting in for state revenue. So that speaks to, okay, well, how are we going to solve this statutorily and fix the tax cap formula, or whether or not there is gonna be a tax cap formula. So there is a statute that was gonna go toward to the legislature, but they haven't opened up again to fix that. And the latest round, or the latest version that I saw, that I was asked to comment on, said that the statutory language was, it would set all the base rates. The base rate is set for a particular fiscal year, and then you can raise, you could raise 4% off of that. That was the original tax cap law. So then they changed the base rates, and they're raising them pretty significantly, at least for Oxford County. And then the wording is that the county could raise no less than a certain base rate, and then could do a tax cap. And then my comment to Oxford County was, okay, well, that's perfectly fine, that'll help us fund it, but then that means it's gonna be like a 20% tax hike on the residents of County of Oxford, because the no less than base rate was so much higher than what our tax cap is right now, or what Oxford County's tax cap is right now. So, so the whole jail thing is kind of hosed up, the whole jail funding thing is hosed up. In any case, so when you go back to the MCCA, if they are talking about that, my suggestion is that at least for this additional funding formula, we stick with whatever the chaptered law is right now, which is to base it off of each county's additional shortfall for the FY 19-20 fiscal year, which the interpretation was, if you're a calendar year organization, if you're a calendar year county, that you use FY 19 ending December 31st, 2019, whatever that shortfall was. But then I was looking at the chaptered law, and it said any additional amounts aren't going to be divided by the counties, they're going to be just dumped into the fund to be used in future years. So that's completely different from how it was presented to us as far as how the calculation goes. And then what that would mean is that then there is no additional funding at all for Androscoggin County or any other county that didn't have a shortfall for FY '20. And that's another reason why some of the administrators were like, well, that ain't good. We're counting on that for our budgets, right, including Androscoggin County. So, yeah, so I don't know how this is gonna be resolved, but it's something that the MCCA is gonna have to resolve.
Well, thank you for covering for Noel, and thanks for the great report. I can appreciate you putting time in.
Yeah.
Good. Central Maine Western Workforce Board?
Board continues its work to retrain and assist in placement of those county residents who have been displaced from their employment because of COVID-19 or for other reasons. The latest news on the radar now is the fact that the CDC has placed a moratorium on evictions through December 31st of this year. It doesn't advocate people from paying their rent. It does allow landlords to accrue interest on rental payments due. So that will affect those utilizing the service, as well as affect the landlords, which we've, heard lots of fallout about, the previous moratorium. Landlords were forced to, foot the bill when tenants weren't able to pay. So that's all I have for now. But we'll keep watch and see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Commissioner. Let's hear from our treasurer.
Okay, so reporting for the end of August, all departments are still within budget. Our total cash for August 31st was $7.1 million. $5 million of that is clean. Interest as of the end of the month, $35,080. We have had 8 towns as of the 31st that have paid their taxes. And that's in the amount of $5 million, so they're coming in. TAN requests for bid, been prepared and out, and the results will be in front of you by October 21st meeting. That'll be on the agenda. That's looking good.
Thank you. Any questions for the treasurer? If not, pleasure of the board to accept the treasurer's report.
I move to accept the report.
Seconded by Commissioner Roy. All those in favor of accepting the treasurer's report, all opposed, passes unanimously. Report from the administrator.
Okay, just very simply, I will follow up with Commissioner Roy's comments on the jail funding. The fact is that word has kind of come down that supplemental can't be used by formula. And so that means that, and quite frankly, it really shouldn't be, because if it's used by formula, then everybody gets some, even if you don't need it. And that happened once before, a few years ago, where everybody got some by the formula, and there were some jails that quite frankly didn't qualify for supplemental. And there are 2 ways to do the shortfalls. One is that and you base it on your shortfall for last year, and that's the way they're doing it now, is the shortfall for FY '20. What I have always done is budget for the shortfall based on your total budget. When I come before you with the budget, and this year's budget shortfall is $366,000, somewhat. Last year was $354,000, and indeed we got the $354,000 in July for FY '20, and so we were good. FY '21, however, I was planning on being able to budget $366,000 and get that paid like we did last year. That's not happening, so we're probably gonna have to wait until next year where they go back the year. So anyway, that whole thing is kind of it's a mess. It has been, the jail funding thing has been a mess for years, since 2008 when the VOC came in, and then 2015 when they gave it back to us after they'd already made all the tires flat and so on. So anyway, that's been the big topic of discussion among my colleagues in this last week or so. So we'll see what happens. The last comment was last night when one of the administrators said, let's just get those that actually had a shortfall last year, and we'll figure out the rest of it later. And so I haven't heard anything since. So that's essentially probably what's gonna happen, because Scott Ferguson is saying, no, you can't use that for the, the current, you can't use it by formula and so on, or for the current year, because the legislative intent was for last year. So we'll see what happens. But the other thing is, and you have last week, our last meeting, rather, you had an administrator's report in front of you, and I'll only highlight a couple of things and add a couple of things. The new server is being delivered, server room's been upgraded, plans are going forward for EMA to tie into the new server, which will make it much more secure. I've reviewed the statute regarding county bond referendums, and that was in your packet last week, and I trust that you read that. For the commissioner's questions as to when bonding can be held, the statute says it may only be conducted during a statewide election. In other words, you can't have a special election, it has to be a statewide election. So, obviously made budget changes for the budget committee. That took me a while to figure out what in the world you did last time, but we did that and got that. And the again, the calculations of shortfalls and so on for the jails. That's essentially what's been going on. The budget committee met last week. They are meeting again in 25 minutes, and we'll start their departmental reviews.
Good. Questions for the administrator? Hearing none? Thank you, Administrator. Move to comments from the public. Are there any comments from the public? Anyone like to speak anything from the public? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business. Item 8A, optional arrest powers. I understand Deputy Gallagher has the whole plot to review for us here.
They're all under control. All under control. So, this actually was brought to our attention by one of the assistant district attorneys. During one of our investigations, the question was asked if we had the optional arrest powers, which I guess you guys have in your packets. I remember at one point, many years ago, this was presented before the commission, but it was just 3 members. But none of us remember the date, so we decided to bring it back up before you, so we can actually get it recorded and if you approve of it. It would give us a tool for us out in the field. If a deputy has to go to a different county to do a follow-up and there is a violation as outlined, he or she could make an arrest on site. So, that's, if you have any questions.
Really, so what would be the circumstances that we would be in another county?
So, for example, if we had a motor vehicle fatality and there was issues that pertain to another county that we needed to go to right away, or some sort of investigation that leads us to another location outside of Androscoggin County, and we show up, oftentimes like Oxford County, Franklin County, very rural. So we may send a deputy or two. If a violation as outlined in Title 15, which I think you have a copy of, any of those crimes occur, it gives our officers the ability to actually effect an arrest, versus standing there and trying to get another officer from that jurisdiction to come over.
Another thing more common is they're attending training outside of the county.
Yeah.
A lot of times you can come across stuff. I know when I used to transport prisoners, there was violations. If you have no authority to do it, and I think this is what brought it to a head, you could jeopardize court proceedings and people's rights. The other thing I can tell you, when I work a night shift, roads look a lot different, especially when you have farms in a lot of the areas in the county. Oftentimes it was safer to go through, from Poland to Livermore, going through Oxford County, and things occurred, you'll hear something, a call that's more of a priority, like in whatever that town is, when you go down Bear Pond Variety, so you swing in to lend a hand and you just never know. We've got MOUs, but there's instances where independently, like I had explained to you, there might be instances where we are on our own enforcing a law, main statute somewhere else, when this was just meant to protect the agency and the individual employee in the course of their duties. It's kind of a formality, so I didn't want to make much of a big deal out of it, but, and he had a better grasp of it than I did.
The right to perform duties, let's say Oxford County. Now, does the Oxford County Commission need to sign off and give us permission to go into
No.
it?
No,
That's
it's
just,
only your body
it
that
only
does
comes
it
out
for
of here.
us.
See, right now, we have MOUs with actually every county now, but that's different, that's if a call for help. We also have agreements with every PD, as well as like Freeport PD, because there's issues during Freeport, those kind of areas where either, just yesterday, there was a call for assistance out there. So you're protected under that, but it's different when you're coming across something in the course of your, where,
Travels,
yeah, jeopardizes.
What we've done in some cases, our domestic violence investigator, for example, he may have to go to a different jurisdiction to do a follow-up with a domestic violence victim. So he's actually been sworn in through the Attorney General's office. If one of our other deputies has to go to, say, Oxford to follow up and he finds the suspect there is in violation of protection order or bail conditions, he could actually effect an arrest without having to call and maybe wait 45 minutes for another officer to show up.
Do other counties have similar agreements?
Yeah, a lot of counties have. We're probably one of the fewer that don't have it. Actually, like I said, we did it years ago. I think either Ron James or Guy Desjardins was the sheriff back then. We don't have a record of it, so I think it was just time to renew it before your board. But a lot of other agencies do have it, and it was asked by one of the assistant DAs who represents us, do we have it? She was wondering and thought it would be a good idea to bring it up.
We could also, I'm not saying we want to, but we could also revoke this at any time if we wanted to. Yeah,
I would assume so.
yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the optional arrest powers.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the arrest powers. Any further questions or debate? Not, all in favor? All opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Billy, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Item 9, old business, bylaws amendments. You have a copy there? I didn't get a copy.
There should be one.
Should be one in the
One right
packet.
here.
He's got one in the packet there somewhere.
I got it. Let's see. First item on section 14, bylaws amendment, is adds the words, any agenda item shall also be placed on the next meeting's agenda upon a vote of 4 or more members, alters the methods, adds to the methods really, of placing items on the agenda. Do you have a motion?
I move to approve, section 14, item for meetings as written.
Commissioner Terry moves to approve,
I'll second that.
moved and seconded by Commissioner Roy. Discussion? Commissioner Madore?
I'm gonna clarify what number reading we're on for the bylaw changes.
You know, from what I understand, we're on one or two, because we somehow scheduled three and the chair has no idea why. But we're going with the recommendations.
Well, the first one, some of these didn't actually show up as a written document until last meeting. And so,
Okay, so we believe this is the first.
yes,
At any rate, we're gonna have another reading next, in 2 weeks, to be the official second reading, I guess. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries, unanimous. Next item, section 15. Chair to be presiding officer, adds the language, the chair serves at the pleasure of the board. The chair may be overruled on any matter by a vote of 4 board members. The chair may be removed or replaced at any time by a vote of 4 members. So the motion on that?
So moved.
Moved and seconded by Commissioners Terry and Kelly and Roy. Discussion on this? If not, all those in favor? All those opposed? 1, motion carries 5-1. Item 15A, term limits on the chair. Each chair should be limited to 1 consecutive 1-year term. This bylaw may be suspended for the year by a vote of 5 or more members. Do I hear a motion on this?
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Commissioner Roy, seconded by Commissioner Kelly. Discussion? This effectively disallows a second year by the chair unless there's a vote of 5 or more members. Board ready for the question? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? The motion carries, as I understand, to move forward to the next reading.
no, to move forward to the next reading, you need 5 votes.
And which side is this, which right side would be the prevailing side?
Yeah, right. Because the 4 of us.
Before the chair announces the vote.
But it
Well,
might be again.
The chair votes on the prevailing side, whatever that is, and the chair will entertain, because there are not 5 votes, the chair would entertain someone to make a motion to table this.
So move to table.
Move to table, seconded to table.
Sure.
All those in favor? All, carries unanimous, the item will be tabled till removed from the table. Number 10, discussion items. Any discussion items? Commissioner Madore?
Was anyone in attendance of the last budget committee meetings? I didn't.
No, I was not. Any further discussion items? We'll move on to item 11, future agenda items. Any future agenda discussion? Commissioner,
Oh, sorry, Commissioner.
hearing none? We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Move to adjourn? By Commissioner Roy, seconded by Commissioner Kelly. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
How efficient we are.
Yeah. Got 15 minutes to play before the budget meeting.